Let's learn the correct way to move rows and columns around, and all of these techniques are going to work both on rows and columns, even though I'll only show them on one or the other. First, let's look at this chunk of green cells to the left, and it says to move these green rows between the two blue rows. So when it's talking about rows, it makes it seem like it wants me to take the entire rows, so we'll do that, but I'll show you how you could do it with just the green cells as well later. So it's asking us to move these rows between the two blue rows. First thing that we're going to do is head to the bottom border. It could also be the top border of what we've selected, and we'll wait for those crosshairs to show up. First, let's try with just clicking and dragging and moving this down. Now, if you'll notice that there's two green bars that show up that are the width of my original selection, and this is not what we want if we're trying to just squeeze we're just trying to squeeze rows between other rows. What this is going to do, as you'll see, when I lift up, it's going to say, wait, there's already data there, do you want to replace it? And I'll click OK just so that we can see what this does. It's now replaced everything that was there previously, which is not what we wanted. So I'm going to press Ctrl Z to get back to where we started, and we're going to try something else. This time we'll head again to the border, wait for the crosshairs, and now we're going to press and hold Control. And if you see, there's now a little plus sign that's showing up next to my cursor. We're going to click and drag, and again we're seeing these two green bars that show up. But when I'm pressing and holding Control and doing this, something a little different is going to happen. When I release this, you'll notice it's not only replacing that data, but it hasn't moved those rows down, it's actually moved a copy of those rows down. This again is not what we want, so I'll press Ctrl Z to undo that. Last try, we're going to try this time coming to the border, waiting for the crosshairs, and then pressing and holding the Shift key. Now when I move, you'll see that there's only one green bar, good sign, and now I can place it between the two blue, which was what our goal was, and release. Now we see that it's moved those rows down to where they were supposed to be, between the two blue rows. I'll press Ctrl Z, and I also want to show you that you could do the same thing but just with a selection of cells. So let's say you just wanted to move these green cells down. I would press Shift, come to the edge, press Shift, move down, and now I can see that I have this green bar that's just the length of what I've selected. I can drag it down and paste it in there. Moving on to adjusting the size of rows and columns. First, let's look at this part up here. It's saying that this text does not fit in the cell. I can't even see the whole thing in the cell. I have to look up to the formula bar to see it. So if I want this to fit, I have a few options. One, I can come to the top and see a border and drag it until it fits. That's one option. The other thing that I could do is come to that same border up at the top by the letters and double click by that border, and it's going to automatically expand it as big as it needs to be for all of the text to fit inside. Something else that I can do is I can adjust all of the rows or columns at the same time. I can adjust multiple. So let's say I wanted to adjust K and L, and I wanted them both to be this long. So I've selected both of those columns, adjusted just one of them, and both of them are going to now be that width. The other option that I have is to double click when both of them are selected. I'll double click, and it will now open up both of those columns as much as they need to be independently so that all of the text will fit inside. Lastly, I want to take a look at how you would adjust all of the rows or all of the columns in your spreadsheet. For example, we're going to increase the size of all of the rows in this worksheet, but the same thing works for columns. If I wanted to adjust all, then I would come up to the left-hand corner, click on this little triangle, and now, like we did before with the rows, or with the columns, excuse me, we could now drag and adjust all of these rows at the exact same time. Take some time to practice and get really good at moving rows and columns around, and I will see you in the next video where we'll take a look at some different data types.